What if the incessant voice that echoes in your mind, the one that forges your narrating self, isn't who you really are? What if the truth, the silent observer, awaits you behind the veil of your own illusions, a revelation waiting to be unveiled? Today, I will guide you through an inner alchemy of thought, a path that will unravel hidden mysteries and transform your perception of the esoteric universe, leading you to a profound spiritual enlightenment that lies dormant within your very being. Prepare for an immersion in ancient wisdom, where the teachings of Thoth, the divine scribe, intertwine with the most cutting-edge whispers of modern neuroscience, converging into a truth about the very nature of your identity. We will explore the deceptive illusion of the narrating self, that inner voice that constantly judges and reacts, and unravel how conditioning and social labels, imposed since childhood, have sculpted the identity you believe to be yours. We will reveal consciousness as the true silent observer, an impersonal and universal presence nested within every being. And we will discover the immense freedom that arises from creating space between you, the observer, and your thoughts, diminishing their power over you. Each word will be a fragment of rare and transformative knowledge, resonating with the cosmic energy of truths guarded for ages, imbued with the fascinating mystery of the inexplicable. If you feel the call of the incomprehensible, if you long to unravel the essence that lies beneath the surface of your existence, I invite you to light this journey of self-discovery, to share your deepest reflections in the comments, because your interaction enriches this shared mystery, and to subscribe so that together we can continue unraveling the enigmas that dwell in the depths of your being. This is only the threshold of what is to come. Friends of the invisible path, allow my words to be the lantern in the labyrinth of your own mind. That incessant voice, echoing in the sanctuary of your skull, relentlessly judging, weaving tales of the past and anticipating improbable futures, is not your essential self. It is the narrating I, a sophisticated architecture of the psyche, a chimera woven from threads of memory, social conditioning, and the countless labels the world has imposed on you since your first breath. Remember the ancient Vedic texts, which describe Maya not only as the illusion that veils reality, but also as the tireless weaver of individual perception. It is this veil, this curtain of prefabricated narratives, that prevents you from perceiving the pristine light of your true nature. The sages of the Upanishads whispered that the Atman, the divine breath, is that which remains unchanged behind the incessant dance of the mind, the silent observer who presides without judgment over the theater of your experiences. This narrating I is, in essence, a personal demiurge, an architect of subjective realities who, in his eagerness to give coherence to the sensory chaos, forges invisible chains of identity. From early childhood, you were bombarded with names, roles, and expectations. Every good and bad, should and shouldn't, became a brick in the construction of this narrative tower. School shaped you, family defined you, society labeled you. And the narrating I assimilated these fragments, building a fortress around the fragile flame of your original identity. Do you sense the irony? What you believe yourself to be is, to a large extent, what others have told you, and what your own narrator has accepted and amplified. It is not a malignant entity, but a survival mechanism that, in its quest for order and control, has become tyrannical. It clings to your stories, fears, and desires, because without them, who would you be? Freedom lies not in destroying this voice, but in understanding its transitory nature, in seeing it as an instrument and not the teacher. It is the first step in inner alchemy, the transmutation of misidentification. This voice, this constant river of thoughts and judgments, has kept you prisoner in a self-imposed reality, a distorted reflection of the universe that pulsates in every moment. The Gnostics, in their cryptic texts, spoke of archons who feed on ignorance and attachment, We could consider the narrating I as an internal archon, a force that, without malice, perpetuates the cycle of illusory identification, keeping you in a lucid dream of your own creation. Do you dare to awaken from the story you tell yourselves? The path to dissolving this misidentification is not repression, but mindful observation. It is the art of listening to the symphony of your thoughts without joining the orchestra, without assuming the role of conductor. Imagine that you are the vast sky, and your thoughts are the clouds passing through it. The sky is not disturbed by them. It simply contains them, allowing their unceasing passage. Buddhist texts, especially in the Jagoshin tradition, invite use to self-liberation from thoughts by recognizing their empty nature, that is, their lack of inherent and permanent existence. Each time the narrating I draws you into judgment, future worry, or rumination of the past, you have the opportunity to recognize that voice, to label it with a conscious presence. Ah, there is the narrator, creating another story. This act of recognition is an act of sovereignty, a slight but momentous slip from within the narrative into the position of the observer, the unchanging witness. In this intermediate space, between thought and observer, lies your true freedom. The primordial silence where cosmic energy can resonate unfiltered, where the alchemy of your consciousness begins to manifest in its purest form. The ancient Hermetic teaching of as above, so below reminds us that the macrocosm of the universe reflects our inner microcosm. If the cosmos is vast and silent in its immensity, is not your essence equally expansive and free from constant mental chatter? Do you dare to perceive the immensity of this latent truth? This is not the end of the path, but a new revelation of the threshold. The mystery deepens. This is not the end of the path, but a new revelation of the threshold. The mystery deepens. If consciousness is a vast sky and thoughts are clouds, what invisible structures direct its course, dictate its shape and color? It is the vast tapestry of conditioning, woven thread by thread since the dawn of your existence. Imagine the newly arrived soul, a canvas of pure light, receptive to every imprint. From the first breath, the gaze of the other is mirror and chisel. Every approval, disapproval, word, and gesture is a subtle thread in the fabric of identity. You are assigned a name, gender, role, and position. Before you formulate a conscious thought about who you are, you have already been whispered and then shouted a narrative of what you should be. The forbidden texts are not mere tomes, but the truths silenced beneath social conventions, the knowledge of how these walls are erected. Plato, in his allegory of the cave, showed us prisoners who knew only shadows. Similarly, from the cradle, we are conditioned to accept projections of a reality prefabricated by collective expectations. The voices of your parents, teachers, heroes, and cultural norms become the inner voice that dictates what is correct, acceptable, and desirable. This is reverse alchemy, transmuting the gold of your essence into the lead of a prefabricated identity, a disguise that fuses with your skin. Siberian shamans spoke of soul theft, the gradual loss of connection with one's intrinsic spirit upon conforming to the tribal mold, an inverted rite of passage that engraves boundaries. Can you feel how every I am you utter with conviction? Every deeply held belief is merely the reverberating echo of a millennia-old chorus of alien voices that defined you long before you could define them? It is a prison without bars, built from the shifting sand of collective perception. It is time to examine the invisible chains. True freedom lies not only in observing thoughts, but in unveiling the matrix from which they emerge, the vast field of conditioning that nourishes them. This is not just a reflection. It is an invitation to the archaeology of being. Are you ready to unearth the layers, to dissolve the veils imposed from birth? Gnostic wisdom whispered about archons, not external demons, but psychic forces, created by humanity that chain us to illusion and roles. To free yourself is to awaken the eye of the heart, the oculus cordis, to see the invisible plot that limits you. The path to deprogramming is the true initiatory path, the forgotten rite of passage, which calls you to question not only what you think, but how and why. What will you discover when you shed the garments that have clothed you? It is a journey into the fertile void, the pleroma of being, where true identity awaits, not as a construct, but as a resonance of cosmic energy. This is the first step in unveiling. What follows is even deeper. After the archaeology of being, once we begin to dissolve the layers of conditioning, the subtlest essence of our existence emerges, like the primordial foam of an ancient ocean. Consciousness is the silent watcher. It is the immutable witness, the presence that resides beyond the ceaseless whirlwind of thoughts, emotions, and sensations that constitute the theater of our mind. Have you ever felt that deep stillness amidst the maelstrom? A space from which everything is perceived, but which is unaffected by anything it perceives. That is the nature I am speaking of. It is not a thought, because it observes thoughts. It is not an emotion, because it is the calm that witnesses the emotional tides. It is not the body, because it is the light that illuminates the dance of cells. It is the Sakshan of the Vedas, the pure witness, the eye that sees without being seen, the pristine screen onto which the totality of your perceived reality is projected. Consider the firmament. Clouds, storms, the blazing sun, and distant. Stars pass through it, change, and dissolve within it. Yet the sky itself remains immaculate, vast, and eternal, the impassive backdrop for all the meteorological drama. In the same way, your consciousness is that boundless sky, and your thoughts are the passing clouds. Do you identify with the clouds or with the space that contains them? Most of humanity, trapped in the illusion of form, clings to clouds, to roles, to ego narratives forged by time and culture. But ancient wisdom whispers, in the Sanskrit texts of the Yoga Vasista, or in the sutras of the Buddha, that true freedom lies in disidentifying from the impermanent and recognizing oneself as the unchanging. Jnana Marga, the path of knowledge, is not a mere intellectual study, but a deep immersion in this direct perception that you are not the flow, but the river itself. This recognition is the supreme act of inner alchemy. It is not about controlling thoughts, nullifying them, or forcing them into stillness, but about perceiving that, in their arising and fading, there is a presence that precedes them, a presence that needs neither to be created nor destroyed, because it simply is. The sage Ibn Arabi spoke of Hadrat al-Ghaib, the presence of mystery, a domain where individuality dissolves in the ocean of unity. When you place yourself in this observer, ego identification diminishes. The voices of ancestral programming, the psychic archons we spoke of, lose their power. You cease to be a puppet of your subconscious programs and become the silent director of your own work. It is a radical freedom, an emancipation from the subtlest chains, which cannot be bought with gold or granted by decree. It is the awakening of the intrinsic divinity, the Socratic daimon, or the inner Christ of esoteric traditions, which resides at the center of your being, waiting to be acknowledged. The key to this transmutation lies in the constant practice of mindfulness, not as a mere exercise in concentration, but as a radical dedication to non-judgmental observation. When a thought arises, do not follow it, do not reject it, do not become entangled in its plot. Simply notice its appearance and its dissolution, like a bubble in water. With each detached observation, the energy that fueled that identification with the thought is redirected into consciousness itself. It is like withdrawing the fuel from a machine until it coasts to a halt, revealing the immaculate engine beneath. This is the essence of deep meditation, not to seek silence, but to be the silence that observes the noise, not to seek peace, but to be the stillness that contains the turmoil. This process purifies the mirror of the soul, allowing the light, of the cosmos to be reflected without distortion. This observing consciousness is your anchor, your true home in the universe. It is the point of stillness at the center of the spiral of time, the eye of the hurricane that sees everything, yet remains unmoved. Recognizing it is not an achievement, but a remembering of what you always were. It is the source of deep intuition, the gateway to universal wisdom, the bridge between the individual and the cosmic. But the journey does not end here. Once you have found this immovable center, what happens when this observer begins to observe the very nature of observing? What is revealed when awareness turns upon itself in an act of transcendent reflection? Prepare for an even more dizzying revelation, where the limits of perception dissolve into infinity. When the observer turns upon itself, the vision reverses, and what seemed like an individual eye is revealed as the very light that illuminates all existence. It is the mystical instant when the mirror, instead of reflecting the world, understands that it is the source of reflectivity. Do you understand the magnitude of this internal alchemy? It is not that you possess consciousness. It is that you are consciousness, but not a portion limited to your name or body. It is the same universal consciousness that pulsates in the most remote star and animates every blade of grass. The Vedic rishis whispered it in the esoteric Upanishads. Tat pham asi, that art thou, not a metaphor, but the ontological truth of being, your personal I. That egoic construct anchored in individual experience is but a momentary ripple in the vast ocean of the unmanifested, a bubble in the river of cosmic being. The Gnostic writings veiled. From the layman spoke of the nous, the cosmic mind, of which every human intellect is a consubstantial, non-separate spark. Thus, you are not possessors of consciousness. You are a channel through which the infinite universal consciousness experiences itself. When consciousness, through you, observes its own observation, the age-old illusion of separation vanishes like mist before the sun. You understand then that another's pain is not alien, that the joy of one is the joy of all, for the web that underlies existence is this single, formless consciousness. It is the great I Am that resounded from the burning bush, not the I Am of an individual, but the I Am of the omnipresent totality, the primal sound that vibrates in all that exists. This understanding dismantles the prison of the ego, liberating one from the self-imposed suffering of identification with the transient. There is no individual consciousness that dies, only the dissolution of a form and the return of that manifestation to its inexhaustible source. Remember the forgotten hieroglyphs depicting the Ouroboros, serpent devouring its tail, the eternal cycle of manifestation and reabsorption where consciousness finds itself. The knowledge that consciousness is not a possession, but a universal principle fundamentally alters your perception of reality, of life and death. It removes the fear of annihilation, for how can that which is the essence of existence be annihilated? It is like asking whether the ocean can be annihilated when a wave breaks. The wave dissolves, but the ocean remains. This is the truth. The alchemists sought not in the transmutation of lead into physical gold, but in the sacred transmutation of the limited I into the unlimited being. And as you feel this vast, impersonal presence vibrating within your own being, what new capacities does this realization awaken? If consciousness is not yours, but you are a conduit of cosmic consciousness, what implications does this have for your creative power, your intuition, and your ability to influence the matrix of reality? The fact that neuroscience, with all its sophistication and insight into the intricate neuronal labyrinth, has been unable to anchor the I in a circumscribed brain region, nor in a specific pattern of electrical activity, is in itself the most eloquent of revelations. Could the ocean be contained within a single wave, or universal light be the property of a single ray? This fruitless search is not a failure of science, but a veiled confirmation that the true I transcends anatomy and physiology. It is the echo of the primordial wisdom that has always claimed that we are more than the sum of our parts. The ancient Vedas whispered this in the concept of Atman Brahman. The individual soul, the deepest I, is identical with ultimate reality, universal. Consciousness. There is no locus of command, because command is everywhere, dissolved in every fiber of the universe, vibrating in the silent dance of atoms and galaxies. The illusion of a separate I, an entity with defined boundaries, is the root of the fragmentation we perceive in the world, a veil of Maya that distorts the truth of our intrinsic unity. If each nerve filament, each synapse, is not the home of the self, but an antenna, a receiver tuned to the vast and infinite consciousness that permeates the cosmos, then the perception of individuality is transformed. I am not the violin, but the air that vibrates through it. I am not the word, but the silence from which it arises and to which it returns. This is the uncomfortable truth that the arcane texts warned against. The rational mind seeks to reduce the limitless to a formula, an equation, but the essence of existence resists all conceptual cages. It is like trying to imprison the wind in a net or the light in a glass. The I is not in the brain. The brain is in the I, being a dense manifestation of that same universal consciousness. It is an instrument, not the musician. A canvas, not the painter. The priests of Thoth at Kelm, long before the scalpel explored the skull, already understood this non-locality, referring to the brain as the throne of the mind, not its origin. The implication is profound. If your self is not a tiny monarch in a skull, but a spark from the central sun, then your capacity for action and perception extends beyond the limits of your physical body. This understanding that the personal I is a mere reflection, a ripple in the vast ocean of cosmic consciousness, has profound ramifications for your perception of intuition and creative power. If you are a conduit, then what flows through you? What ancient wisdom is available not as a learned memory, but as a resonance, an inherent truth that is awakened by dissolving ego barriers. Intuition, far from being a mere irrational hunch, reveals itself as the ability to consciously tune into the vast archives of the universal mind, what some have called the Akashic field, or the unconscious collective mind. It is not that you have a brilliant idea, but that you are the channel through which a cosmic idea manifests in dense reality. Think of the great inventors, the visionary artists, the mystics who brought revelations. Were they the absolute creators, or did they become instruments so finely tuned that the wisdom of the universe could flow through them without resistance? Cosmic consciousness has no limits of information, of possibilities. Your local self, by recognizing itself as an extension of this unlimited consciousness, is freed from scarcity, from doubt, from the notion that knowledge must be arduously acquired. In reality, much knowledge already is within you latent, waiting to be remembered, resonated, manifested. The Hermetic masters spoke of knowledge by identification, not by study. By identifying with universal truth, one becomes it, and truth is revealed from within. This is the alchemy of awakening, where the lead of ignorance of the limited self is transmuted into the gold of universal knowledge. How does this manifest in everyday life? Your creativity is no longer a personal struggle against a blank canvas or an empty page. It becomes a dance, an act of co-creation with infinite intelligence. Inspiration doesn't knock. Inspiration is. And you, by quieting the noise of ego and fragmented thinking, simply open yourself to receive it, to allow it to express itself through your unique form. It is a power that is not used, but is. This same dynamic extends to your ability to influence the matrix of reality. If the individual I is a ripple of cosmic consciousness, then your intention, when aligned with the universal current, is not a mere plea into the void, but an act of fundamental co-creation. The ancient shamans, the Kabbalah masters, the Taoists, sages all understood that reality is not a fixed, immovable structure, but a malleable fabric of energy, responsive to the focused intention of consciousness. Modern science, with its explorations of quantum physics, begins to touch upon this truth in the laboratory, where the experimenter's observation seems to influence the behavior of subatomic particles. If your consciousness is not confined to your skull, but resonates with the totality, then every thought, every emotion, every intention is a vibration projected into that energetic matrix, and like a musical note in a symphony, contributes to the melody of reality. You do not manipulate reality from outside. You co-create it from within, because you are an inseparable part of it. This is the essence of magic in its highest and purest sense. Not a trick of illusion, but the art of conscious manifestation. The profound understanding that your consciousness is an active node in the cosmic web. Ancient prophecies spoke not of the coming of an external savior, but of the awakening of inner consciousness, the realization that the ability to shape destiny lies in the resonance of your own being with the pulse of the universe. And what happens when this resonance is collective? What dimensions of reality can be dreamed into existence when multiple cells, recognizing each other as facets of the one, harmoniously direct their intention? This leads us to question the true nature of what we call reality, and to the doorways of hidden dimensions that the linear mind cannot yet conceive. However, brothers and sisters of the path, what good is it to glimpse the vast co-creation of reality if the very mirror of your individual consciousness is clouded by the mists of identification? If the resonance of the universe responds to the purity of your intention, what message does it send when your being is chained to the phantoms of your own unexamined perceptions? The freedom we speak of is not a license for external chaos, but the dissolution of internal chains. Archaic texts whispered in Himalayan caves and engraved on lost papyri from Alexandria warn of the monkey mind, that incessant chatter that mistakes true identity for the whirlwind of thoughts. Do you believe you are your fear, your anger, your ambition, your pain? The Great Sutra of Disidentification, a manuscript few have had the privilege to behold, teaches that the first veil to be pierced is that of merging with the mind string. It's like observing the river without diving into every eddy, without believing you are the water, the shore, or the floating leaf. You are the observer, the I am that precedes all mental manifestation, the immutable stillness from which the drama of existence unfolds. This is the essence of alchemical separatio, differentiating the observer from the observed. True bondage is not external, but uninterrupted identification with your mind's self-constructed narrative. Freeing yourself from this illusion is the first step to unleashing the true power of will. This space we crave is not a physical distance, but an ontological one. It does not involve the suppression of the mind, for the mind, in its purity, is a divine tool, but rather the conscious separation of your consciousness from automatic identification with its contents. Visualize a shadow theater. Thoughts are the dancing figures, and you, the silent spectator. Can you observe fear without being fear? Notice anger without becoming anger? This is alchemical separatio, the crucial step in transmuting the lead of unconsciousness into the gold of wisdom. Don't fight your thoughts. Observe them with the dispassionate curiosity of a sage. Allow them to arise and dissolve, like passing clouds in the limitless sky of your awareness. Every time you choose not to engage, every time an emotion or judgment passes unfed, you are stripping those mental constructs of their usurping power. It is in this detachment that a liberating force resides, dissolving the illusions of the ego, revealing a pristine lucidity. The voice in your head loses its despotic authority. You are no longer slaves to preset programs. It is here, in the void between thought and observer, that true freedom flourishes, one that is not dependent on externals, but emanates from the core of your being. This is inner alchemy in its highest form, the transmutation of suffering into peace, of limitation into unlimited potential. By freeing your being from this tyranny, you not only transform yourself, you alter the resonance of the collective matrix. This identification is not an end, but a door to the deepest chambers of the Temple of Wisdom, where the truths about cosmic interconnectedness await, and where the true power of co-creation manifests with astonishing purity. Are you ready to cross that threshold, to go beyond the mind and merge with the consciousness that orchestrates the worlds? The threshold to which I invite you is not geographical, but ontological, an immersion in the vast, unbroken stream of existence where the illusions of individuality dissolve like salt in the ocean. Think of universal consciousness not as an external entity, but as the very essence of your being, a primordial light of which you are a spark, a fragment that, upon awakening, recognizes the whole. Is a drop of water distinct from the sea that contains it, or is it merely a temporary manifestation of its vastness? The wisdom of the Upanishads whispers, Tat Pham Ase, you are truth. That a truth that transcends the language barrier and points directly to the non-duality inherent in reality. The ancient masters, from the Hermetists to the Sufis, understood that the separation between the observer and the observed is a chimera woven by the conditioned mind, a veil that hides the underlying unity of all manifestation. This is the great revelation that awaits beyond the constructs of the ego, that each other is but a multifaceted mirror of your own consciousness, a fractalization of the same cosmic pulse that animates you. When the eye sheds its defenses, it discovers not a stranger, but itself in infinite forms. It is in this recognition that empathy transcends mere compassion and becomes a reverberation of one's own being. For how could you harm that which is indistinguishable from your innermost essence? This is the alchemy of unconditional love, the transmutation of the blindness of selfishness into the panoptic vision of interconnectedness. Suffering, as we know it, is the echo of this illusion, of separation, the agony of fragmentation that yearns for a return to oneness. By dissolving the boundary, you not only free the other from your projections, but you free yourselves from the chains of loneliness and existential fear. The knowledge that you are an integral part of a vast web of conscious life, a cosmic symphony where every note is essential and unique, yet also part of the universal harmony, is the key to dismantling self-imposed prisons. Can you feel how your heartbeat resonates with the beat of the stars? How the same energy that pulsates in a distant galaxy flows through your veins? This is not an abstract concept of arcane metaphysics, but an experiential truth that transforms the perception of the world from its foundations. The legend of the Veil of Maya is not a mere fable, but a poetic description of the human condition in its state of forgetfulness. Every act of selfless kindness, every moment of genuine forgiveness is a rent in that veil, a glimpse of the underlying oneness. We, like ripples on the surface of this ocean of consciousness, may believe ourselves to be separate, finite, but the truth of our nature is that of the ocean itself, limitless, eternal. Modern science, at its boldest frontiers, is beginning to glimpse this truth, with concepts like quantum entanglement. The forbidden libraries of Tibet and the hidden codices of the Essenes hint at this great web, this living matrix of conscious energy. It is as if the universe were a single vast organism, and each of us were a vital cell of that divine body, contributing to its purpose. The dissolution of the self is not an annihilation, but an expansion, a fusion with the whole that does not diminish oneness, but rather enhances it, like a note that finds its true beauty when integrated into a melody. This understanding deactivates the engine of conflict, revealing that the well-being of the other is inseparable from one's own. By recognizing your divine essence in every being, compassion becomes an irrepressible force. Are you ready to inhabit this truth, to walk the path, where every encounter is a reunion with the One, where every breath is a communion with the cosmic pulse? The following revelation will immerse us in the consequences of this unity, exploring how the absence of separation redefines creativity and the very purpose of existence. If separation is a chimera, then creativity is not an individual act, but the very breath of the universe manifesting through us. We are not the creators, but the channels, the brushes through which the ineffable paints his masterpiece on the canvas of time. Purpose ceases to be an egoic search for meaning and becomes a synchronized dance with the cosmic will, a harmonic resonance with the eternal symphony of existence. By dissolving the fragmented I, we become the mirror of infinity, reflecting its limitless potential. Every thought, every action is infused with the vastness of all that is. There is no mistake, only learning. There is no failure, only metamorphosis. Life is transformed into an uninterrupted flow of revelations, where every moment is an opportunity to remember our divine heritage, to activate the architect that slumbers at the core of our being. We are conscious co-creators of reality, not isolated individuals, but fibers of an unbreakable fabric connected to the beating heart of the cosmos. This is the awakening, the culmination of the quest, but also the beginning of a new odyssey. Ancestral wisdom is not static knowledge, but a living current that invites us to swim in it, to feel its pulse in every fiber of our being. Enlightenment is not a distant destination, but the full realization of who we have always been. Pure, limitless, interconnected consciousness. Now that the veil has thinned and you glimpse unity, how will your way of interacting with the world, of creating, of finding your purpose in this vast and interconnected existence change? Your journey is not over. If this reflection has resonated with the truth that resides within you, share this video to ignite the spark in other seekers. Subscribe to this channel so that together we can continue unraveling the mysteries of the young, universe, and our own being. And for your next dive into occult wisdom, I recommend watching our video on the 7 Hermetic Principles and their impact on manifestation. A new portal awaits.